All right, welcome into another edition of the Fast Break. This is episode 4. I am 𝗗cie Johnson, and CHSN's coverage of the NBA trade deadline is brought to you by BetRivers Sportsbook. Here are the 4 things I'm going to be checking out and focusing on this week, which promises to be a nutty week. Number 1, what will the Bulls do next? It is well documented that after Sunday night's seismic trade of Zach LaVine to the Sacramento Kings in a 3-team deal, that the Bulls remain open for business. Everybody that I talk to around the league says the Bulls are very active. We've been reporting this for a while. With the Zach LaVine trade, the Bulls have chosen a direction. That direction is going to be bumpy. It's going to probably involve a lot of short-term pain. It is called a rebuild, and that is what the Bulls are undertaking. It started with last summer's trades of DeMar DeRozan in the sign-and-trade deal to the Sacramento Kings, along with now Zach LaVine, and also obviously their trade of 𝗗ecie 𝗄șie to the Oklahoma City Thunder for 𝗗ście 𝗵𝗋. But with 𝗗tože 𝗵učević and Zach LaVine still on the roster, the Bulls remained in the middle. Ownership has always supported management's vision with what they want to do, except they didn't want them to remain in the middle. That's where the Bulls have been stuck for the last 2 seasons with playing appearances, and they were right there again this season. And so the Bulls management now has chosen a direction. So what's next? Well, I'm looking at 𝗗tože 𝗵učević, and I can tell you that in my conversations with the big man, he is fully prepared to potentially be on the move by Thursday. Do the Lakers now get involved in that situation again after their crazy trade of Anthony Davis for Luka Doncic? They need a center. I've always said there are other centers on the market potentially, and they are more defensive-minded and of the rim protection variety than 𝗗tože 𝗵učević. Those guys consist of a group like Robert Williams III from Portland, if he is made available, Walker Kessler from the Utah Jazz, if he is made available, maybe even Jonas Valanciunas from the Washington Wizards. There's also been some rumblings in 𝗗liche 𝗵𝗋e from the Atlanta Hawks could be available. So I think Vooch is probably down the line for the Lakers targets. And I've also been told that the Warriors' interest in him has cooled somewhat, but I can tell you that there are other teams that have called on 𝗗tože 𝗵učević. At one point, Miami showed some interest, and I believe, although I do not have this confirmed by a second source, that Atlanta at one point inquired on 𝗵učević. So I have my targets on 𝗗tože 𝗵učević. Obviously, Lonzo Ball is another name you're going to hear a lot between now and next Thursday. He obviously has been one of the most impressive comeback stories of the league this season. And his minutes limit has been increased to 28 minutes a night. He has navigated every potential health challenge well. And would he interest a playoff team? Obviously, his expiring deal, maybe a team doesn't want to give up a lot of capital for him, given that they can acquire him this offseason. But if you're a team that thinks one more defensive-minded piece could push you over the top, maybe the Bulls can wrangle a second-round pick and an expiring deal out of Lonzo Ball. And then I've mentioned this before, but with Ayo Dosunmu and Coby White on value contracts that can only be extended at 140% of their salary number, do the Bulls look to try to get out ahead of one of those situations and proactively trade them in advance of their contracts being up following next season? So the Bulls are active. I would expect more activity between now and Thursday regarding the Bulls. And that's going to be one of my main, obviously, focuses this week. Number 2, I'm going to be watching the Zach LaVine fit with DeMar DeRozan in Sacramento. Bulls fans know this fit well. It worked swimmingly when Lonzo Ball was the connecting piece in that glorious first half of the 2021-2022 season. However, it got a little clunkier as Lonzo Ball navigated his health issues and knee surgeries. And look, Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan get along famously off the court. They have a ton of mutual professional respect for each other. DeMar DeRozan posted on Instagram last night a poignant picture of him and Zach LaVine in a locker room somewhere with the words reunited. I believe that was peaches and cream. DeMar DeRozan's an old school guy. So look, that's going to be a fit to monitor in Sacramento because Zach LaVine is back to having an elite season without DeMar DeRozan. Again, this is nothing personal between those two, but just for whatever reason, those two without Lonzo Ball in Chicago did not always fit swimmingly. And look, with Sacramento trading De'Aaron Fox Malik Monk is going to be handling the ball a lot. Zach LaVine will be handling the ball a lot. DeMar DeRozan obviously likes it in his spots. So how will that fit, work for the Sacramento Kings moving forward as they try to enter a crowded Western Conference playoff picture? I know this is a Bulls-related fast break episode, but we all have, memories of DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, so that's something I'm going to be monitoring this week as well. All right, storyline number 3 I'm going to be checking out this week is the Bulls' won-loss record. Look, another thing to keep in mind with this Zach LaVine trade and any potentially future moves the Bulls make is obviously now they have control of their 2025 draft pick, but the more they lose, the lower their seed goes, the higher their draft lottery odds are. So all of a sudden the NBA draft lottery is a more important date than maybe some games for the Bulls. And, management and ownership may not always like to hear that, but that's kind of the reality when you enter a full rebuild. The higher the draft pick, the better your chances are to pull out of this rebuild. And this is going to be a multi-year project. And one thing to keep in mind about that 2025 draft pick that the Bulls now have full control over is I've heard some people say, well, the Bulls could have kept control of that 2025 pick by just getting worse the rest of this season. That's true. However, all that would have done is shift the protections on that pick to the 2026 NBA draft. They still would have owed that first-round pick to the Spurs. It would have been top 8 protected then. Most scouts that I talk to say that the 2026 NBA draft has a chance to be just as strong as the 2025 NBA draft, and now the Bulls have full control over their first-round picks as they enter this full rebuild. So look, the emphasis on scouting and drafting properly is going to be huge. That is the underpinning, the foundation of any full rebuild. And obviously you've seen some growth from Modest Buzelis of recent play, so there's high hopes internally for their 2024 first-round pick. Can they continue hitting on first-round picks in 2025, 2026? That's going to be the main story now. And look, the management's always said, if they get into a full rebuild and the minutes go to the young players and they still somehow make the play-in tournament, they're not going to stand in the way of that progress, because in that sense, those young players are learning how to win. But it would probably behoove the Bulls if they stayed in that draft lottery, got some lottery luck. Everyone remembers Derrick Rose, right? And obviously got a high pick in 2025. Cooper Flagg is atop that draft board. Obviously Ace Bailey is another name you hear a lot. That the Bulls would love to fall into the odds of either one of those players. And again, they now have full control of their 2026 first round pick as well. All right. Topic number 4, I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be tuning in. I think I'm going to be tuning in to the Lakers' first game with Luka Doncic. I think he's due back from his calf injury February 8th, I read. I haven't checked the Bulls' schedule. Hopefully they don't have a game, but the Lakers play late anyway. I, just like everybody else, was floored by the Luka Doncic trade from the Mavericks to the Lakers. It was all the talk of the Bulls pregame in Detroit on Sunday. Post-game, we talked to 𝗗cie𝘄ʰi𝗹cie. He had a hilarious story in which he admitted he was asleep and he woke up to about 50 texts on his phone, and his immediate thought was, where did I get traded? Classic stuff. But look, every player I talked to, Josh Giddey, Lonzo Ball, we talked about how very little is shocking in the NBA in this day and age. This was a shock. This was one of those moments you will remember where you were when it happened. The only thing I can equate it to in my recent memory, and it's not an apples-to-apples comparison, but is when Kevin Durant left Oklahoma City Thunder in free agency to pick the Golden State Warriors. That was a where were you kind of moment as well. This one caught the entire league by surprise. You've heard lots of stories about how it happened, how it came down. It's clear that Nico Harrison, the Mavericks GM, and Rob Pelinka, the Lakers GM, who have a long-standing relationship from their days, both connected to Kobe Bryant. Nico Harrison as Kobe's shoe rep and Rob Pelinka as Kobe's agent, kept it very quiet. The circle was very tight. You've heard some say that if Mark Cuban was still the majority owner of basketball operations, this move never would have happened for Denver. But that's all the behind the scenes stuff. What I'm looking at is from a basketball standpoint, and the obvious dominant question is, how does Luka Doncic fit with LeBron James? This move was made for the Lakers long term. Luka Doncic is the future of that franchise, which is weird to say when you still have LeBron James playing at such a high level, but Father Time is undefeated, and LeBron James at some point will retire. And Luka Doncic is there to stay. The Lakers did it again. This is what they do. They acquire stars. But in the short term, the Lakers are 8-2 in their last 10 games. They are 5th in that crazy Western Conference playoff picture. So how does Luka Doncic and LeBron James fit together in the short term? I'm going to be watching like the rest of the league. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Fast Break. Remember, everything from the CHSN NBA trade deadline week is brought to you by BetRivers Sportsbook, and we appreciate you watching, and we'll catch you next time.